Hello and welcome to day 25 of the 11:11, where I am attempting to talk about a subject for 11 minutes and 11 seconds every day in January. And it's the last week of January. We've made it this far. There's been moments where I didn't think we would. Because it's the last week of January, I've decided to theme this week to give myself a bit of a break in coming up with new things, but also because it's important to me and I find it interesting, and so that's what we're doing. And we're theming it along the lines of neurodivergence, which is something I've spoken about a little bit before, but basically I'm diagnosed as OCD relatively recently, about 2 or 3 years ago, and ADHD. I'm going to request a new assessment for autism because there were lots of errors on my autism report, and I self-identify as dyslexic. I haven't been tested. I'm debating whether or not to be tested. Pros and cons, the need for external validation. So today we'll stick with dyslexia, because I was chatting to a friend a couple of days ago, and I just casually dropped, I just mentioned, that I'm dyslexic. And sometimes I say I'm self-diagnosed dyslexic. Sometimes I frame it, I think I'm dyslexic, and sometimes I just state it as a fact, because it's not really anyone else's business whether or not I've had a test to prove my suspicions. And there has been a study done. I wish I could remember who did this study, but it's a bit like doing those questionnaires, like, am I an alcoholic? If you're asking the question, you probably are. Apparently dyslexia has quite similar correlation. If you're asking whether if you suspect you might be dyslexic, you probably are dyslexic. And there are lots of tests that you can do online. But in the UK, to get an assessment as an adult, it's about, you can pay anything between £400 and £900, which, yes, it would open doors for legal adjustments in the workplace or while studying. I can definitely see benefits for doing it, and it's not as expensive as I thought when I looked into it. I think I remembered it as being more expensive, but probably the reason I thought it was so expensive is because at the time I was also looking at ADHD and autism assessments, and now they are expensive. My ADHD assessment was done via the Right to Choose pathway on the NHS, as was my autism assessment, but as I said, there were errors there. And they're much, much, much more expensive, and huge waiting lists with the NHS. So if you suspect you might be dyslexic, like I said, there are tests that you can do online. I will link to a couple in the description. One of them is called the Bangor Dyslexia test, and that is supposed to be about 90% accurate. But there are some hidden, unsuspected signs that you may be dyslexic, because my friend, her response to me was basically, but you read and write fine. And I'm like, well, what do you know what is happening? How do you know that? Yes, I read. I wouldn't say I read fine. It's difficult I have to really concentrate. So I just thought we could go through some signs of adult dyslexia together and see how many we identify with. This is not a test, this is just some signs on the British Dyslexia Association website. So, do you confuse visually similar words such as cat and cot? I do. The first time I noticed this, I was very young. I was in little people's school, and it was the words, particularly the words was and saw. I was constantly switching them. I am so sorry, what's happened to my voice? This is not good. Excuse me. And so I actually went to special reading classes to catch up. Now, that would have been the time to catch my dyslexia if the school had provided some form of assessment then and there. But they didn't, and that's okay. Do I spell erratically? Yeah. Like sometimes it's, yeah. I don't really know what they mean by erratically. But like when I was doing my morning pages this morning, and there are definitely words where there's doubling of repetition of letters, like feminine, for example, feminine. You got the feminine, feminine. Anyway, I always hesitate there. I'm like, have I written enough INIs? Have I done? And that it took me forever to learn to spell my name, my full name, because there's a lot of repetition in it. My full name, Nofretete, Nofretete. Here on this channel it's Tia, but that took me so long to be able to write down. And I still can get confused with the E-T-E-T-E. Do you find it hard to scan or skim text? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I don't think I'm very good at it. Sometimes I'll try that, like beginning and end of paragraph. Or if I'm finding a piece of text quite boring, then sometimes what I do is I start at the end of it. Like if it's an article, not if it's a book, but I'll start at the end of the article, the last paragraph. And if that piques my curiosity, then I'll go on up, and eventually I'll have read the whole thing in reverse. That's sometimes what I do if I'm not getting into it immediately. Do you read or write slowly? I definitely read slowly. I have to read slowly. Do I write slowly? Now that depends on whether I'm writing on a computer or by hand. I think my brain thinks quicker than I can keep up often. So it depends on, and if you're in flow or not. Do you need to reread paragraphs to understand them? Constantly. Do you need to reread paragraphs to understand them? All the time. I'm constantly rereading paragraphs or sentences within paragraphs, like, because my mind wanders off. I think that's why. Or like, the words will haze. Do you find it hard to listen and maintain focus? Do you find it hard to listen and to maintain focus? Yes, I do. Yes. Again, I get distracted. I think there's like a lot of crossover as well between like ADHD and dyslexia and other things too, and like dyspraxia and dyscalculia. I don't think I'm as much on the dyscalculia, although I do find numbers quite difficult. Anyway, do you find it hard to concentrate if there are distractions? Oh my God, yes. Oh my goodness, yes. Yes, I do. I find it very difficult. And for me, that's like wild, because it's like if there are distractions or it's too noisy, then I'll put in my loop earplugs, and that helps. But strangely, if it's too quiet and yet I know there are people around, then that quiet becomes noisy and therefore distracting. Just whatever. Feel sensations of mental overload and switching off. Yes, I do. Yes. Like the blinds come down. If you can hear that noise, they're working. There's men at work outside, and I apologise. Do you have difficulty telling left from right? Sometimes. Do you get confused when given several instructions at once? Oh my goodness, yes. I close I'm like, whoa, that's like, I don't, what? In what order? Can you write that down for me, please? Or, I don't know, what? Have difficulty organising thoughts on paper? Yes. Do you have difficulty organising thoughts on paper? Yes, I do. Well, yes, I do. I always struggled with essays at school as well, and like it's the kind of thing like, oh my goodness, a job application just feels like the cruelest thing in the world, honestly. Do you often forget conversations or important dates? Yes. Yes, I do. Yes. Do you have difficulty with personal organisation, time management, and prioritising tasks? Yes. I've been sent on courses by work because my time management and prioritising was so poor. Do you avoid certain types of work or study? Yes. Do you find tasks really easy but unexpectedly challenged by others? Yes. Do you have poor self-esteem, especially if dyslexic difficulties have not been identified in earlier life? Yes. I don't know how you did on that, but I answered yes to all of those questions. Like I said, this isn't a test. I'm going to link to some tests in the description. 1111, thank you.